Welcome to the Asylum, the #1 place for your toy and collectible fix. Receive the help you need only at the Asylum. We hope you enjoy your visit. Yes.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Asylum Show. I'm Mike, the facilities manager of the Asylum, and I'll be your host. Now, before we get into this episode properly, for those of you who remember, I did say I'd write a blog post in regard to the UK toy industry discussion we had in the last episode. I have done that. You can find the link in the description below. Please be sure to check it out and get involved in the discussion. Moving forward, I'll be starting this episode with the Asylum Showcase. Now, I wanted to do something a little bit different here and maybe take a little look into my personal collection and what drives that. Rather than do a collection tour at the moment, I won't show you because it's an absolute mess. I thought I'd take my top 10 linchpin action figures from my collection and run down those. I hope you enjoy this. Let's get stuck in. At number 10, we have the Winter Soldier from Marvel Legends. There's nothing massively special about this figure. I just find that it's my go-to for any photography projects or anything that requires a lot of articulation. Admittedly, he may now get edged out by Deadpool, but he's still a great figure all the same. And at number 9, we've got Dead-Eyed Duck from Hasbro. This guy pictured is possibly the earliest one of my toys from my childhood that is actually the original toy from my childhood, so he had to be on this list. I remember having lots of Bucky O'Hare toys as a kid and will never get over losing my Owl Negator in the bushes of my infant school. And coming in at 8, we've got Weapon X from Toy Biz. The Toy Biz X-Men figures from this era just scream 90s to me. I didn't have any when I was younger, but I had a few friends that did. I loved the cartoon growing up, and this Weapon X figure covers my nostalgia for that, as well as being a very close likeness to Barry Wintersmith's Weapon X artwork. The number 7 spot on this list goes to Boba Fett from Kenner. Like many Star Wars fans, I gravitated towards The Mandalorian very young and couldn't tell you exactly why. This is another figure on this list that the one you see pictured is my original childhood toy. I was born in '86 and was first introduced to Star Wars via the special edition releases. Hence, he is the roided Power of the Force 2 action figure. Number 6 sees Slimer, aka Green Ghost from Kenner. Just like Bucky O'Hare, I remember having lots of Ghostbusters toys as a kid. I've not picked up as many as I'd like to as an adult, but I'll certainly get around to it. The two toys from that line that stick in my memory the most are this guy, which I'm still determined to track down a stake for, and Stay Puft, who I remember using to squirt water from his foot in the bath. As we enter the top 5, you'll find Splinter and Slash from Playmates, sharing number 5. I have a sizable collection of the lean green fighting machines, including an original Technodrome. Once again, these are a massive throwback to my childhood toy playing days. I couldn't pick just one, so they both share this spot. Number 4 sees Titan Joker from DC Direct. It was the Arkham Asylum toy line from DC Direct that propelled me back into toy collecting as an adult. I managed to pick up the first series at my first ever convention back in 2011. I'd always bought toys periodically throughout my life, but for some reason this was the line that brought it all back to the forefront. I chose the Deluxe Titan Joker in particular just because it's my favourite figure from the entire line. And at number 3 we see the Legacy White Tiger Zord from Bandai. Power Rangers was huge for me as a kid in infant school, but I never had any of the Zords as they were just too expensive. Now I'm an adult with a little disposable cash, I've bought some of the Bandai Legacy pieces. I chose the Tiger Zord for this list as it brings back great memories of toy hunting in London on my 30th birthday last year. I could probably have gotten him cheaper online when I got home, but then there'd be no memory attached to it. Taking second place on this list we have Man-Bat from Kenner. Batman the Animated Series is my favourite cartoon of all time and my first memory of Batman. In particular, I remember that first episode on Leather Wings, and because of that wanting to buy this toy the moment I saw him, which I did, from Woolworths. First place on this list shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who knows me. It's the Gamorrean Guard from Kenner. This was the toy that started it all for me, the one that changed me from a player of toys to a collector of toys. I won't go into the details as I have written a pretty extensive blog post on my love for Gamorrean Guards, but what I will say is this was the figure that changed the way I looked at toys for good. And that brings us to the end of my top 10. I hope this gives you a nice insight into my personal history of toys. It isn't necessarily my definitive top 10, as there are a lot of pieces, especially from my childhood, that I want to pick up again. But I wanted to restrict this list to any key pieces I personally own, and that mean something to me. Once I get my displays back in order, I will be sure to share a proper collection tour. If you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to ask in the comments below. Back to me. Up next, I'll be introducing a new segment called Rec Room Discussion. This is simply where I'll take a topic and just run with it. And this week I'll be asking the big question, are movie theatres becoming obsolete? Now, it's a little embarrassing to admit as a massive Star Wars fan, but I did wait until the Blu-ray release before I watched Rogue One. And since then it has become number 2 on my how I would rank Star Wars movies. Now straight away this may give away my stance on movie theatres in general, but I'll expand on that in just a moment. As it stands, the cinema is the only way to experience most major movies at their earliest point of release, and has been since I can remember. However, I feel the experience is nothing like it was when I was younger. I used to love going to the cinema, and it was genuinely a real treat, but these days it can feel like a chore. Now, a lot of moviegoers don't adhere to theatre etiquette. People speaking, you see smartphones lighting up all around you, noisy snacks, and many other things that can take you straight out of the experience. This is worsened by the lack of stewards now actually allocated to screenings to stop this kind of thing happening. I genuinely remember a time when the cinema was quiet, even through the trailers, because that was the only point or resource that we actually had at the time to find out what was coming out soon. Now, my biggest issue with movie theatres these days is their use of outdated technology. A big thing for me when I go to see a movie or something like that isn't necessarily the picture quality. If anything, the large screen projector like flickers and flashes etc. are what make the experience different for me. What really does get to me is the low quality of sound. So I basically in my local area have 3 choices. Now I can either go to Cineworld where the sound is very tinny and speech is almost inaudible. I can go to the Odeon, which is booming sound, but there's very low fidelity in the vocal, or I can pay a premium on what's already an expensive experience as it is, and go to a picture house. Now, with some small studios now releasing their movies digitally, literally just a couple of days after their big screen debut, is there any need for cinemas now? It's only going to be a matter of time, I would hope, until major studios start taking this approach on board, and I'd happily pay the equivalent of 2 cinema tickets to watch the latest releases from the comfort of my own home, on my 1080p TV and in my own sound system. Or is it time for someone to completely reconceptualise the idea of the movie theatre? Personally, I love the idea of a silent cinema, where each seat has a headphone jack, you supply your own headphones, and you can completely immerse yourself in the experience. Contradictory to all of that, I will be going to see Guardians of the Galaxy 2 as soon as possible. Now, the biggest reason for that, and it's another issue with the way that movies are heading these days, I don't want to see spoilers. I don't want to know every single frame of this movie before I actually go in to see it. The issue is even bigger when part of your day job is to be up to date on these things. All in all, this is a very big discussion, and I can only speak from my personal perspective. What I need is for everyone to get involved. Let me know how you feel in the comments below, and I'll touch on them in a future episode. Coming away from the negativity, next up on the show we'll be taking a closer look at LEGO's K-2SO buildable figure. Enjoy. I decided to take a closer look at this interpretation of K-2SO, as I feel the LEGO buildable figures can get a little left behind in the action figure conversation. Plus, I've been looking for a reason to build it since I bought him a few weeks back. Now, before I continue, I'm in no way, shape or form suggesting that this is a replacement for a good Black Series or Elite figure in your collection. What I am saying is that given the value for money you get from this toy line, when comparing it to your standard 6-inch figures, it's impeccable. You get the fun and playability of LEGO, and at the end of the build you're left with a nicely articulated 12-inch action figure that is just as fun to play with as the build itself. Okay, so you lose a few of the movie accurate details and the scale opposite other toy lines, but these aren't trying to compete with those. What it does is take you back to a simpler time of toys with today's technology and a package that you can identify with. It also gives you more playability pound for pound without the time, money or physical imposition of a LEGO Death Star. To me, these are all positives. Having previously owned all of the DC and Marvel superheroes line of these, and having the impressive General Grievous already on my shelf, I had no second thoughts of picking up K-2SO for the collection. At 169 pieces, he is a nice, easy build, but complicated enough to keep you interested. Of course, he has his issues. Like most of the Buildable figure line I've owned, very little attention is paid to his back. However, this is the first of the line that I've encountered with a built-in action feature, so that kind of makes up for it. My only other small complaint would be the placement of the elbow joint. I feel it is a little high, but I can happily overlook this. The head has been sculpted just for this set and is amazingly detailed, and I'd even say that its proportions are pretty much just right. I had a lot of fun posing and photographing him, and he even ended up with one of Grievous's lightsabers at one point. I'd highly recommend this set to any Star Wars fan, or anyone who likes to get hands on with their toys. This has been a closer look at the LEGO K-2SO buildable figure. Back to me. So that brings us to the end of episode 2. I hope you've all enjoyed your visit. Just in case you're wondering, everything you see behind me is currently available at thecollectorsasylum.com. If you like the episode, please be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when the next episode is up. I've been Mike, your trusty facilities manager, and I'll see you soon.